On the home stretch today at Queensland Raceway with one race left to go in the Viking Group Australian Superbike Championship, but one man who won't be out there is the defending champion, who finds himself sidelined after a nasty test crash in America during the mid-season break.
I was lucky enough to go half okay over there. I ended up 4th fastest, which the circuit was a little bit different to anything we race in Australia.
So we got a call and they wanted Josh after they'd seen how fast he was at the test at Barber. Naturally wanted him to go back and fill the places of Blake Young, with their team rider out for two race meetings. So he went a week earlier on his own and did some testing at a track called Willow Springs.
And unfortunately, yeah, I came off and I was knocked out, and then unfortunately my lung stopped working, so I was airlifted away straight away and I was put in a coma for, I think, 3.5 days.
When I got the call, it was about 7 in the morning, and I was kind of dozing, like I was awake, but you know when you hear the phone and you think, oh, is that the phone? And I know at that time of the morning it's not work related. So when I got it and Phil said, Josh has had an accident and he's in an induced coma, it wasn't the greatest thing. I just handed the phone straight to Michael, like their father.
I don't remember one thing what happened. I remember the day. I remember doing around 5 laps at the test. In the test, I crashed. It was quite early in the morning.
I knew he wouldn't have been pushing it too hard because he knew he was racing that weekend, but and Peter said all he could really get off the data was that he'd held it upright through the gravel pit for a very long time and fought to keep it up.
I flew over on the day, pretty much he got out of hospital and I arrived there. And then when I met him and saw him and we got together again, I could see that we were probably going to be in doubt for this Queensland round. But always living in hope. Look, he's almost ready. He's almost there. He's 99%, but well, Race Safe telling us that he's not 100%, and they don't want to see him out on the track.
So the most important thing in the short term is whether they're safe to ride. And what this looks at is a matter of their coordination, their reflexes, their vision, any symptoms that they're having. So what we do at the beginning of the year is what we call a baseline test on all the major factory riders. So we do what we call a neuropsychometric analysis, where they get on a computer, they do a whole lot of tests that looks at their reflexes, their coordination and their memory, and we've got a baseline for them before they've had any injuries or concussions to their head. Then when any rider comes off, if they get a concussion, if they get an injury, we put them back on the test, get them to do it again. And this test is very good at picking up very subtle differences that they might have. The second thing we have to look at is whether they're safe to fall off. And it sounds a bit funny, but unfortunately falling off is part of racing. It happens to probably everyone that races at this level. And in order to get out there and be safe to ride, you have to be able to, if you fall off, not have any more injuries than a normal person would have. So it's very topical at this moment. There's a concept called second impact syndrome. And it first started to be recognised in boxers and people who played NFL and contact sports such as rugby, where they noticed that people who had concussions or head injuries that were too close together without a decent recovery period in between ended up suffering significantly more injuries than if they'd just had that concussion by itself after a period of time.
Race Safe they're a fantastic mob of people. Like Simon Mast does a fantastic organising all the doctors, and he had a meeting with us last night here at the medical centre and explained the exact situation of Josh and where he is. And it's a big family, it's a big racing family, and that's the way Simon treats it. And Josh is one of his sons.
He has known Josh since he started road racing at 13. So the paddock becomes a pretty big family over the years, and having everyone in this paddock has watched all my 3 boys grow to what they are now. And you do become very protective, and I have to say, like David and Simon and Linda and the rest of the crew have all watched Josh and supported him behind the scenes. They are very protective because they're putting his well-being and interests first.
We have to make sure that there's been an appropriate amount of recovery before there's any exposure to them for having another head injury. So that's the other thing that we monitor for all riders that have had a head injury. We track their progress using both clinical observation of how they look and getting them on the testing. And once we see that, we know that they're out of the risk period. I mean, you still never have any guarantees, but we make sure that we've got an appropriate amount of time that we're comfortable for, that they can go out there, and if unfortunately they do have another off, then they do knock their head, they're not going to be at risk of second impact syndrome.
So the champ may be down, but he's definitely not out. Look for the Suzuki star to be back at Phillip Island.